you and my pranams to Swami Tattwamayananda Maharaj for that very generous introduction, and also my thanks, my namaskar to all the monastic members and all the friends who have assembled here in spite of the inclement weather. Now the topic before me is Vivekananda, a new paradigm in religious thoughts. Now I propose to approach this topic from two different perspectives, from two different approaches. Before entering the subject, I would like to say a few things about this particular expression, paradigm shift or a new paradigm. Now this term became popular after Dr. Professor Thomas Kuhn published his well-known landmark work in modern physics, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, which was brought out in 1962. In this book, he says that scientific progress doesn't take place in a continuous progression. From time to time, there is a shifting of emphasis, a new scientific perspective that emerges. So scientific community changes its overall approach and perspectives from period to period. That means when a number of scientific discoveries take place over a period of time, that forms a new scientific perspective. The way science and scientists understand, pursue and interpret the overall impact of scientific progress on human life. This is the meaning of paradigm, scientific paradigm. The term actually goes back to the pre-Christian Hebraic prophets. In Judeo-Christian tradition, they have what they call progressive revelation of God's wisdom. So every Hebraic prophet brings about a new perspective, a new set of revelations which constitute a paradigm. So that's what paradigm really means. It means an overall change in the perspective, the approach, the way we look at things, the way we look at the very notion of human knowledge. Now, coming to Swami Vivekananda, as I said earlier, we have to approach this subject from two different angles. One, Swamiji's contribution and how it becomes a new religious paradigm from the standpoint of world religious thought, the history and evolution of world religious thought on the one hand, and how it becomes a new religious paradigm from the standpoint of India's own spiritual and religious evolution. Now, coming to the first part of this topic, you find a religion as such in Western world emerged with different Greek mystery religions, mostly before Socrates, Plato and Aristotle. There are many mystical religious traditions in ancient Greece. And later on also in Europe, during the pre-Constantine period, before Constantine became a Christian, before the Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, when Emperor Constantine embraced Christianity and imposed Christianity on Roman Empire. So that's how the beginning of religious tradition in Europe. Now, with the emergence of Christianity, a new religious paradigm came into existence, which means it is an overall shift from the rather rough, uncompromising idea of an angry God that you find in the Jewish tradition to a compromising very humane, very compassionate idea of a Godhead in the teachings of Jesus. But then what really happened was the fundamental spiritual ideas of Jesus that you find in New Testament, the parables, and also in the Sermon on the Mount, became completely clouded, and with the emergence of Saint Augustine in 5th century, the doctrine of radical sinfulness of man and the inherited sinfulness, when human beings are totally helpless. Salvation only through Christ. If you don't take refuge in a particular denomination, not in the teachings of Jesus as such, but a particular interpretation of Jesus' teachings, you are doomed. You are permanent residents in hellfire. That was the concept. Now, from that time onwards till Aquina's times, you find Christianity was highly, in a way it was hijacked by this radical sinfulness doctrine. As a result, philosophy practically died in Europe. Philosophy started recovering only with British empiricism in England, in Britain, with Kant and Hegel in Germany, and also with maybe with some other minor philosophical figures in the 17th and 18th centuries in Europe. And when Vivekananda came to America, this in 1893, what was the religious landscape of Western world? On the one hand, there was transcendentalism in America. Emerson, who was responsible for the emergence of this transcendentalism in the United States, got a copy of Bhagavad Gita, which is translated by Charles Wilkins under the inspiration of the first Governor General of Bengal, the Warren Hastings. It was published in London in 1784. When Emerson got a copy of Bhagavad Gita from his friend, a British social critic called Carlyle, who is the historian of French Revolution, Emerson suddenly got a new idea of religion. So you find, if you read Brahma, Emerson's famous poem, you find many of those verses are translations of Gita. You find the 19th verse of the second chapter, Emerson literally translates. Hanta he translates as, instead of killer, as red slave, that's all. So practically, Hinduism, Vedanta, had already started influencing the finest minds of America in the early part of 19th century. And in Europe, on the other hand, in spite of the great contributions of the great Orientalists like Paul Deussen, Windenitz, Keith, and several other Germans, French, and British, but still what happened? Abrahamic religions were facing a great challenge. With the emergence of Karl Marx and Engels, who wrote Das Kapital and Communist Manifesto, you cannot preach to intelligent people about a God who doesn't care for human life right in this world. So, the followers of Marxism and socialism began to challenge religion, Abrahamic religions, organized religions, as being totally anti-humanistic, unrealistic, and utopian. Utopian socialism of Robert Owen, Freud, and Saint Simon, it was a direct attack against Abrahamic religions. In the first part of the former half of 19th century. And again, Darwin's Origin of Species, which questioned the biblical interpretation of the creation of the world. So, again, modern scientific discoveries, positivism. So, all these intellectual forces were together shaking the very foundations of organized Abrahamic religions. Remember, when we talk about Abrahamic religions, we are not talking about the spiritual teachings of the great spiritual leaders of the world, like Jesus or Moses. What we are talking about is the highly lopsided, evangelical, fanatical, exclusive interpretations of the great scriptures of the world. That is what Engels, Marx, Darwin, and positivists were trying to challenge. So the world was looking for a religion that was not anti-humanistic, that did not look for a transcendental reality to solve the problems of life in this world. So a religion that was not afraid of science and technology. A religion that could withstand the onslaughts of science, technology, then evolutionism, positivism. That was a religion which the world was looking for in 19th century. And you should also remember, when Vivekananda reached America, a small group of intellectuals in both Europe and America had already become familiar with some of the teachings of Vedanta. You have to remember, the Persian translation of 50 Upanishads, which was really done by Dara Shukko, a group of scholars under him, had already become popular among the intellectuals thanks to the effort of a French adventurer who joined the British Army in India to study the mystical religious traditions of Parsis in Bombay, and who took with him a copy of Saint Avesta Veda, and who translated this Persian version into Latin, which attracted the attention of Schopenhauer, and which again was instrumental in evolving many Eastern mystical traditions like Theosophical movement and also Transcendentalism in the United States. And the Unitarian Church, which was highly instrumental, is very influential in Calcutta in 19th century, which influenced Brahma Samaj, the teachings of Raja Keshav Chandra Sen, P.C. Majumdar, been highly influenced by the Unitarianism. So all these intellectual forces had already started challenging the exclusive claims of organized religions in the Western world. At that time, Vivekananda comes to America and tells people, here is a religion that's not afraid of science and technology. And here is a religion that's not afraid of anybody who asks questions. A religion that did not teach you, ask you to believe blindly in anything. A religion which is humanistic, which is universal and also spiritual. So that's why sometimes Swami Vivekananda's interpretation of Vedanta is termed as a universal spiritual humanism. It was universal because it embraces the entire humanity. It was spiritual because it is built upon one central truth, that God lives in the hearts of all. This is the Western background of Swami Vivekananda's advent. Now what about India? India's picture was different. Sometimes I was telling earlier, India had about 19 centuries of golden era. If you include the period of Sishanagas, Bindus, Mauryas, Nandas, then the Kushan Empire, if you include Vijayanagara Empire, altogether India had 19 centuries of golden era. That's the conclusion of many modern historians. But then what happened when Swami Vivekananda traveled all over India? What did he find? He found a nation that had become impoverished, divided among themselves, that had lost its political sovereignty for the last 600 years, and again, which is highly deluded. When he met the students in the presidency towns, he found these youngsters telling him the only solution for all of India's problems was this: take away, drive away, remove Vedas, Upanishads, Hinduism, everything, and you westernize the Indian way of life. So a complete rejection of all that is holy and sacred in our tradition, and transplanting them with Western way of life. That is the solution according to the students, the highly westernized young generation whom Swamiji found during his travels in India. Swamiji's paradigm, religious paradigm, from Indian perspective, was influenced by three fundamental factors. One was his training. For 5 years, he sat at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna and got training, and not only intellectual training, but he had the intimate experience of all that he studied in the scriptures. Second, his Eastern and Western education. Can you imagine Swamiji as a Sanskrit Pandit? He would not have bothered about the problems of Indian society. Suppose Swamiji was a traditional Hindu monk. He would not have bothered about the poverty, the wretchedness, the illiteracy, the ignorance, the superstition, the masses living in India. Swamiji had received the best of Western education. Western education had many problems, but it had one advantage. When you study about French Revolution or American independence struggle or the long drawn warfare between the British Parliament and British monarchy, all that, if you read, then you start thinking, well, what about our own country? Should we live under the British? Before that, the Mughals, the Afghans, the Arabs, or should we not try to get sovereignty, political sovereignty? Should we not try to educate our masses, eradicate social injustices, and then make people stand on their own feet? So, when Swamiji received best of Western education from Presidency College and Scottish College in Calcutta, he realized that mere metaphysical spiritual ideal won't do. Whatever may be the glory of a nation, spiritual glory of a nation, that nation can never preserve its spiritual heritage unless it learns to stand on its own feet. A poverty-stricken, divided, weak nation can never retain or preserve its spiritual greatness. This is a bitter lesson that Swamiji learned when he traveled in India and also when he studied books on Indian history and when he compared India's past, last 500 to 600 years of India's past, with the history of European nations. So, Western education made him understand the importance of secular prosperity, economic prosperity, the need for modern education, not Sanskrit-based spiritual education alone, but modern education, industrialization, urbanization, the need to imbibe Western skills like organizational genius, leadership skills, the ability to come together and work for a common national goal. All these are essential skills that Indian nation needed. Remember, no prophet before Swamiji had dared to point his finger at the drawbacks of Indian nation. Not that they were wrong, there was no need in their particular context. Swamiji was perhaps the first great prophet who rose and pointed his finger right at Indian society and told them there is something wrong with you. Today, no politician will dare to do that. He will lose his votes, he will lose his seats. Only a monk could do that, or somebody like a monk. Because he had nothing to lose, no axe to grind. So Swamiji said, look here, you may have great spiritual heritage. You may have produced the greatest number of the greatest saints and sages in the world. You can boast about Rahimira, Bhaskara, Aryabhatta and so on. Alright, what about what's your present condition? You should change that. How could a handful of Europeans who come to this country and the whole nation lay prostrate before them? There is something wrong with India. One of his sentences is very touching. He says, the answer is not far to seek. United we stand, divided we fall. This is Swamiji's message. So here you find a prophet interpreting religion as a tool for secular prosperity, secular progress, for national strength and unity of a country. Now here I must say a few things about the scriptural background of India's social problems. Why did such a great nation have to suffer so much? From a scriptural point of view, Swamiji makes an important point. He says the one fundamental reason why Indian society collapsed during the last nearly 800 years, right from the advent of Muhammad Ghazni up to the Battle of Plassey in 1757. There's one reason. Swamiji makes an interesting point. He says, we forgot the Vedas. We neglected Vedic heritage. I know this is a bit difficult to understand. Swamiji says, wherever you find highly parochial highly divisive tendencies, and also highly unjust barbaric practices like sati, child marriage, or neglect of the women folk, or not allowing women folk to get education. All these wrong ideas come from one central flaw. He says, we gave too much importance to Smritis and Puranas and we completely neglected the Vedas. If you find Yajurveda, you find Yathemam, Kalyanim, Vacham, Avadani, you find such Brahmarajanyabhyam, Aryaya, Charana, you find this great Vedic message should be taught to men, women, kings in their palaces, Brahmins, outcasts. Everyone has a right to study the Vedas. You find the Yajurveda Samhita. But then Manu says, Asutantra Striyakarya Purushai Soy Divanisham Vishayeshu Sajjanti Samsthapya Atmano Vashi. Manu makes a point in the third chapter of Manusmriti. Ladies should be kept under lock and key. They should never be allowed to come out and get education. But Manu makes another point in the same scripture, in the Manusmriti. Yatra naristu pujindi tatra deva remandija yatra yadastu na pujindi tatra sarva aphala kriya. Where ladies, women are honored, there everything goes well. Where women are not honored, everything collapses. All actions go in vain. So you find in the Smritis and Puranas, many ideas which are mutually in conflict, highly divisive, some of them very good, some of them not so very desirable. Though Swamiji says the only solution is we must go back to the Vedas. Coming to the subject, all the Smritikaras also make this point. All the important Smritikaras, they say Smritis and Puranas are meant only for contemporary, temporary application. They do not have permanent authority. Whenever there is a conflict between what the Puranas and what the Smritis say, whenever they contradict what the Vedas teach, you should reject the Puranas and Smritis and uphold the Vedas. Because what the Vedas teach is it is the philosophy for a highly egalitarian society, where everyone gets education, where women are honored, women are educated. There is a statement, the Yajurveda Samhita, Brahmacharyena Kanyam, that's a point here. Avadani means through Vedic education alone, a maiden, a woman becomes fit for marriage. Means everyone was fit for, but who was given Vedic education. But then, as I said earlier, when society started giving more importance to Smritis and Puranas, what happened? Number of injustices, a lot of injustices crept into Hindu society. So masses were neglected. A large number of Indian society was kept out of the mainstream. They were not allowed to come to the temples. They were not given education. They were treated as outcasts. Swamiji says we must revive the Vedic culture once more. I can give you many quotations from this Vedic literature, where Smritikaras themselves say, don't listen to us when we contradict Vedas. That Sruti Smriti Virodeshu Srutireva Gariyasi Avirodhetu Sadakaryam Smartam Vaidika Varsada. Even Jabala Smriti. Whenever there is a contradiction with Smriti and Sruti, Vedas, Sruti and Smritis, then don't listen to what the Smritis say, you uphold what the Srutis, the Vedas say. Adhishtam ki Vedeshu taddrashtavyam smridau kula ubhabhyam yet nadrashtavyam tad puraneshu kathyate. Sruti smriti puraneshu virodeshu parasparam purvam peliyasya idi nyaya vido vidhu. This is the statement in the Abhastamba Smriti. Abhastamba was one of the Smritikaras. Smritikaras are constitutionalists, they are lawgivers of ancient times. They say, whenever there is a contradiction between what the Vedas, the Puranas and Smritis say, you reject what the Puranas and Smritis say and you uphold the Vedas. What happened in India was we completely neglected the statements of the Vedas. We started upholding the Smritis and Puranas. And Smritis are sometimes very local, very divisive, and very much in conflict with the fundamental principles of justice and fair play. And therefore, all these social injustices came into existence. Swamiji said, the original Vedanta should be interpreted in such a way that everyone feels confident. Everyone feels that Vedic heritage is her or his common property. It shall no more be a rahasya to be confined to the Himalayas, mountains and caves, but shall be brought down to the common man to be practiced by the kings in their palaces and by the beggars in the streets. Swamiji's own statement. Now, this is a totally revolutionary concept. The idea that we must go back to the Vedas. By Vedas, what we mean, we must go back to the pristine Vedantic heritage. This is the only solution for some of these problems. So, on the one hand, in the Western perspective, Swamiji gave a religion, an interpretation of religion, which is universal and humanistic. On the other hand, in the Indian perspective, Swamiji reinterpreted our ancient Vedantic heritage in such a way that it will become a tool, an instrument, not only for spiritual progress, but also for economic, social, and developments and progress in all departments. The one thing he called universal religion, the other he called practical Vedanta. In fact, his interpretation of universal religion has got far-reaching consequences. If you go to America and Europe today, if you are a Christian preacher, if you are a Jewish rabbi, if you address your own congregation in your own church, or in your own Hindu temple, or in your own synagogue, and if you tell your own people, well, our religion is the only true religion. All other religions are false. Nobody will listen to you. If you go to America today, go to the Midwest, the most fanatical Bible belt as they call it, no Christian preacher will dare to tell his own congregation that look here, Jesus is the only way. Nobody will take him seriously. Why? Because of Swami Vivekananda. If you go to America today, you find Hindu chaplains in the army base talking about Hindu philosophy. You find Swamis acting as chaplains in some of the important universities in America. This would have been totally unthinkable if Vivekananda had not brought Vedanta to America. If you go to America today, you find people may not openly reject Jesus. They uphold Jesus. But they are totally against any kind of exclusivistic interpretation of Bible. In fact, the very idea of interreligious dialogue, the very idea of interspirituality movement is a direct impact of Vivekananda's advent in Western world. There are, generally speaking, three approaches in interreligious dialogue, interfaith relationship pattern. One was the old school, exclusivistic school. They used to preach maybe till about the last decade of 19th century, till Vivekananda's advent. It was very common. My own religion is the only true religion. All other religions are wrong. And frequently, my denomination is the only right denomination. That's another thing. My denomination, Roger Williams was one of the early settlers in America. He was a Calvinist, he was a Protestant. He was driven out to Boston because he did not endorse the highly fanatical views of the particular denomination to which majority of people of his locality belonged. So he was driven out. There were many Quakers who were hanged in the East Coast during the early period of European settlers in America. So they not only rejected non-Christian traditions, they rejected all other denominations of Christianity. But today you find in the movement of interfaith relationship, interfaith dialogue. So exclusivism is totally rejected. Now again there is another school, another approach, syncretic school. Sometimes it's called syncretic approach, where you consider your religion is totally false and wrong, and you completely surrender your views and accept another religion. That is also against Swamiji's fundamental approach. Swamiji said every religion is an equally valid path leading to the same goal. It is built upon the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, of course. The concept of universal religion is only an interpretation of the broad teachings of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa. But Swamiji put it in modern language. So he said, if there are conflicts among different followers of religion, there is one fundamental reason for it. We completely forget and neglect the broad universal humanistic teachings of different holy scriptures. And we give more importance to minor details, socio-anthropological, cultural and nationalistic aspects of different religious traditions. Sometimes we completely forget the universal spiritual teachings of Sermon on the Mount or the parables of New Testament. And in their place, we give more importance to, we focus on the secondary details, the socio-anthropological aspects. Means every prophet has to take birth somewhere after all. And he has to speak the language of his people. He has to use the vocabulary, the imageries, the parables, everything he has to take from his own local culture. So those elements will naturally influence his teachings. But they are the outer shells of religion, according to Vivekananda. He says, beyond and behind all these diversities, there is one fundamental spiritual truth, the universal spiritual teachings that are found in all religious traditions. That should be our main focus. That should be the foundation of spiritual life. And he says, if you look beyond the diversities, beyond the differences in terms of socio-anthropological differences, you find the spiritual unity behind and beyond all these differences. We should focus on that. And that is the approach that we find in Vivekananda's universal religion. And it is this approach that teaches us that we can talk among ourselves, no matter what religion we belong to, or if we do not belong to any religion at all. We can engage in mutually enriching, mutually helpful dialogue. So the very concept of interreligious dialogue is a direct impact of Vivekananda's advent in Western world. In fact, the paradigm shift begins here. From a doctrine that teaches you that one religion or rather one denomination of a particular religion is the only correct path. From that, you travel a long distance and finally you come to the conclusion that every religion is an equally valid path leading to the same goal. The glory of Vivekananda was that his idea of religion goes beyond the conventional definitions of religion. Perhaps he was the first great teacher who openly declared that you can be spiritual without being religious. Okay, we have the great glorious example of Buddha, who did not affirm the existence of a monotheistic creator God, but he was one of the greatest spiritual figures the world has produced. But Buddha did not make a categorical statement like this. But Swamiji made it almost a categorical imperative, almost like Kant. He said, you can be spiritual whether you are religious or not. You can be spiritual even without being in God, believing in God. It's a famous revolutionary statement in Vivekananda. He says, you live your life in such a way that God will accept you even if you do not accept Him. So that means God's empire can accommodate even non-believers, even atheists. if they believe in the basic goodness of human existence. There's a great scientist, Cambridge scientist, Richard Dawkins. He's a very celebrated atheist. And there was one of his friends who passed away recently, Christopher Hitchens, prolific drunkard, but he was a great admirer of Buddha, Dalai Lama, Gandhi, and many of the fundamental spiritual principles of all religious traditions. So he totally rejected monotheistic interpretations of the Godhead. Now, according to Vivekananda, if you are a good human being, you can be spiritual. God is not such a miserable creature that his existence is so dependent upon your recognition of his existence. In that case, I don't have much to, there is nothing very great about a God who is so miserable that he feels insecure if you don't accept him. So Swami Vivekananda says, one can be spiritual without even being religious. He himself was an agnostic when he was going to Scottish Church College. So this interpretation is a radical paradigm change. Now sometimes we may not fully realize this. If we go to many Western countries, you find many of them do not openly recognize their indebtedness to Swami Vivekananda. Many of them do recognize, of course. But the point is, whether we accept or not, it has already started working. Not only through Vedanta societies, but we find in the overall mindset of Western world, in spite of so many other non-conformist movements, radical movements, they have come to one conclusion, that if somebody tells you that his own religion is the only true religion and all others are worshipping devils, they won't care a damn for anybody. That is a creation, that's a contribution of Swami Vivekananda. And as for India, if you read some of the Puranic books, you find there are terrible stories in the Puranas, just that there are terrible stories in the Old Testament. And there are some wonderful stories also. Now, the main point is, according to Swami Vivekananda, from Indian perspective, somehow a lot of cobweb had entered the mindset of Hindu brain. If you are totally inactive, it is spirituality. If you are sufficiently poor, you are spiritual. If you don't work for the welfare, the material prosperity of your family, your nation, then you are highly contemplative. Swamiji called the bluff of all this. In fact, there are many Smritigaras who made it very clear that a grihastha who doesn't work for the prosperity, economic prosperity of his country, his nation, his king and family is an embodiment of adharma. It's the duty of every grihastha to work for secular prosperity of his family and his country and his nation. Now what happened, over the years, we cannot say that any particular tradition was responsible for this. But somehow overemphasis on non-violence, in a way, had an important role to play in this outlook. Somehow, poverty was mistaken to be spirituality. Inaction was mistaken to be a sign of sattva-guna. Asceticism came to be the central goal for a large number of people. Somehow, a Shivashasana of Sanatana Dharma took place over the last several centuries. That's why Hindu society became weak, sometimes poor and disorganized. Swamiji wanted the Hindu society should go back to the man-making, the dynamic teachings of Upanishads and Vedas. The Upanishads give a philosophy of self-confidence, vigor and manliness. If you read the Rig Veda, if you read the Upanishads, you find that they teach you to be strong, faithful, self-confident and prosperous. To give an example, in the Tattwamayananda, there are, many of you may be familiar, there are 3 boons which are supposed to be 3 levels of human evolution. Nachiketa asked for the first boon, I need not go into details of the story, most of you familiar. The first boon that Nachiketa asked of Yama is Shanta Sankalpa Sumana Yudhasya Vyudamanyu Gutamuma Abhimurtyu Tukprasistamma Abhivade Pasida Edat Trayanam Prathamam Varambune. I shall give the story a little background, some of you may not be familiar. A little boy found that his father was doing a Vedic sacrifice, but he was not. He was dishonest. So he went to his father and asked him, "To whom are you going to? Because my mom, the Dasasidi." And the father got angry and told him, "I am going to give you Yama, the Lord of Death." And the little child wanted to make his father's words come true, and he went to Yama's abode, and Yama was not there. So Yama wanted to compensate for the long way, for delay in returning home. So he asked the boy to ask for 3 boons. The first boon that Nachiketa asked is this: when I go back to my home, my father should not be angry with me. Now this is the first level of human evolution. First you look for material prosperity, perfect harmony and peace in your domestic life. Everything should be alright in this world. The second boon Nachiketa asked for is this. When I die, I should Sattum Agni Surgyam Adhyeshu Murtyu Prabruhidam Saddhadhanaya Mahyam Surgaloka Amrutum Bhajanti Idat Trayanam Dithiyam Varaprane. See, when I die, I should be able to go to heaven. For that, you should teach me the particular fire sacrifice that will enable me to enjoy prosperity after death. That means heaven. Now, all other religious traditions stop here. The third boon is Ayam Prede Vichikitsa Manushya Asti Tigina Ayam Asti Jaigi Edad Vidya Manusishtastvayakam Varana Mesha Varastratiyaka. The third boon is a request for the highest transcendental wisdom, spiritual truth. So I am not going to details of this story. The point is this: Swamiji declares that Vedanta alone can take you beyond the present, beyond the today, beyond the empirical. So he says, Western science, Western technology, Western organization skills, Western education, these are all needed for India. Along with this, we must blend our own spiritual tradition. So there should be a synthesis of the best of Occidental and the best of the Oriental. So this highest transcendental truth, which is found only in the Vedantic tradition, should be blended with the highest level of Western professionalism, efficiency, the scientific temperament, the innovative spirit. This was Vivekananda's dream. And he said, this synthesis should be the foundation of an ideal nation in India, an ideal society in India. Our society should be economically prosperous, scientifically advanced, technologically advanced, because it cannot anymore remain poor, poverty-stricken and backward. So, to remove the problems of society, we need the best of Western education, Western technology. And above all, Swamiji insists Western organizational skills. But at the same time, there is a great danger. If we surrender our own heritage and go after the Western values, then we may become spiritually pauper. So Swamiji says, our feet should be strongly grounded on our own spiritual heritage. At the same time, we must imbibe the best of Occidental. If we are not proud of our own heritage, if we go to another nation and if we tell them we are beggars, we are nothing, but we want to stay with you, they won't accept you. See, if a poor man, a lazy man, comes to your home and tells you, I want to stay in your home, I have nothing, you won't accept him. But if a man of your own status comes to your home, you may wait, ask him to enter and may make him sit in your drawing room. And he may invite you to his home. Swamiji says, India's got a great spiritual wealth, a spiritual treasure. We must not lose it. At the same time, too much of obsession with spiritual glory, to the extent of completely neglecting the immediate needs of society, the need to bring economic prosperity, the need to eradicate social injustices, the need to eradicate injustice against women folk and the masses. If we completely neglect those aspects and sing the glories of great spiritual heritage of the past, that won't do. So Swamiji said we must be realistic. So in order to solve the problems of society, we must imbibe the best of the Occidental. As I said earlier, what we need, Swamiji's own words, what we need is a harmonious blending of the best of the Western science, technology, organization skills, and scientific temperament. We can say modern the innovative spirit, plus our own spiritual tradition. If you have only spiritual tradition, then our society will remain weak, poverty-stricken, illiterate, and backward. Our streets will remain dirty and filthy. Our offices will become inefficient. Our our growth rate will remain 6 or 7 at the highest. That won't do. So in order to make the nation strong and prosperous, we have to imbibe the best of Western culture and organization skills, scientific, technological development, and all that. At the same time, our feet should be strongly grounded on India's own spiritual heritage. So Swamiji was a great exponent of the synthesis of the best of the Occidental with the best of the Oriental. I think this message is much more relevant today than during Swamiji's times even. Because today, to give just a personal glimpse, I'm living in the United States for more than 3.5 years, only very short period. So I cannot be an authority. As you know, I am still a student, beginning to understand. But I had interaction with many people. What I found these days is very revealing. Those Indians who came in the 60s and 70s, they talk so badly about India. Because they came at a time when India was backward. India was still toying with socialism and things like that. India was economically very backward. There was no industrialization, nothing. But those young Indians, IT professionals, who came during the last 20 years, they are very proud. When they come there, straight away they go to Vedanta Society or some Hindu temples. They have the best of Western education. They are products of IITs, of Indian Institutes of Management, things like that. So they are so proud and they're so creative and so well balanced compared to their early generation. So we can see the contrast. And many of them have read Swami Vivekananda and they appreciate Swami Vivekananda. It's a very positive trend that you come across. Those Indians who came in the 60s and early 70s still curse India. I often tell that if you curse India, American will spit at you. America is a nation built upon self-confidence. After all, the Pilgrim Fathers were running away from England. They were a manly, self-confident lot. They wanted freedom of worship. So they were all Calvinists, staunch Protestants. So if you are confident, if you are proud, and if you can show you have your own pressure, your own wealth, India's great spiritual wealth, then they will respect you, they will appreciate you. If you go and tell them you have nothing, so we want to come, then they will have the contempt for you. They don't respect anybody who has nothing to boast of. They respect you if you have something to offer to them. Because America is a nation of immigrants, you know. People from all over the world, including Europe, they came. Britain to contribute some of the best diplomats. Germans produce some of the best scientists. Italy contribute some of the best artists. French produce some of the best diplomats. So it's such a nation where the best of Europe have come and mingled together to form one nation. So if Indians can be proud of their own heritage, they will respect you. So that's an important message which I want to give you. Thank you. Namaskar.